I start briefly in Dutch. Ik zeg iedereen in de zaal vanochtend en vooral de familie even welkom hier in Maastricht. Welkom bij deze academische zitting en we schakelen daarna over in het Engels. So we continue in English. Yes. Hereby I open this academic ceremony in which Miss Annemarie Westheim will defend her academic thesis entitled Feeding the Fight, Nutrition's Impact on Immune Fitness and Cancer Therapy Success. May I invite you, Ms. Candidate, to present a summary of your studies and the conclusion of your thesis in the next 15 minutes, and I'd like to give you the word.
Dankjewel. Geachte prorector, begeleiders, oppositie, familie en vrienden. De komende 15 minuten wil ik jullie meenemen in mijn werk van de laatste 5,5 jaar, waarin ik gekeken heb naar de effecten van voeding op het immuunsysteem en of we voeding kunnen gebruiken om antikankertherapieën beter te laten werken. Eerst wil ik jullie meenemen in wat kanker precies is. Het menselijk lichaam bestaat uit organen. En deze organen zijn weer opgebouwd uit cellen. Gezonde cellen. Echter, bij kanker gaan die gezonde cellen veranderen en ontstaat er een tumorcel. Deze tumorcellen kunnen oneindig delen, waardoor er een tumormassa ontstaat. Daarnaast kunnen deze tumorcellen ook nog naar andere weefsels migreren en daar nieuwe tumormassa's vormen. Onbehandeld is kanker dodelijk, aangezien deze tumormassa's de functie van gezonde organen platleggen. Kanker vormt een steeds groter probleem in Nederland. Hier zien we het aantal gediagnosticeerde patiënten met kanker in de laatste 35 jaar. En we zien een jaarlijkse toename. Dit is een groot probleem, aangezien kanker een van de meest dodelijke ziektes is ter wereld. Dit is de trend in Nederland, maar deze trend zien we eigenlijk ook wereldwijd. Aangezien in Nederland iedere 5 uur wel een persoon sterft aan de gevolgen van kanker, heeft kanker dus een enorm grote impact op de maatschappij. Ondanks deze schokkende cijfers is het gelukkig niet zo dat we helemaal niks kunnen doen. Gelukkig zijn er behandelingsopties. Klassieke behandelingsopties zijn bijvoorbeeld het operatief verwijderen van de tumor. Maar we kunnen ook proberen de tumor te doden met giftige medicijnen zoals chemotherapie of met behulp van bestraling. Echter zijn geen van deze 3 therapieën echt perfect. Iedere therapie komt wel met zijn eigen tekortkomingen en met zijn eigen bijwerkingen. Er is dus eigenlijk een grotere behoefte aan betere behandelingsopties. Daarom is er de laatste 15 jaar veel onderzoek gedaan naar immuuntherapie. Hier zien we in groen een immuuncel afgebeeld. En normaal zijn immuuncellen prima in staat om zieke cellen aan te vallen. Echter, bij kanker is dit vaak een probleempje, omdat de immuuncellen de tumorcellen niet meer zo goed kunnen herkennen en dus ook niet meer kunnen aanvallen. In dat geval heeft het immuunsysteem een extra zetje nodig. Dat is wat immuuntherapie kan doen. Immuuntherapie kan ervoor zorgen dat de immuuncel de tumorcel weer gaat herkennen, gaat aanvallen en uiteindelijk de tumor gaat doden. Immuuntherapie is erg veelbelovend. Er zijn al diverse patiënten die inderdaad een langdurig goede respons hebben ontwikkeld op deze therapievariant. Echter is dit maar weggelegd voor een klein deel van de populatie. Er zijn ook nog heel veel patiënten die niet reageren. Of een patiënt wel of niet reageert, daar zijn veel verschillende factoren verantwoordelijk voor. Maar één van de factoren is hoe fit het immuunsysteem is, hoe sterk het immuunsysteem is. Als een patiënt een sterk immuunsysteem heeft, hier afgebeeld met de groene, hele snelle, sterke cellen met de Formule 1-wagen erin, is er ook een grote kans dat de patiënt goed reageert op de immuuntherapie. Echter, als gevolg van kanker of andere complicaties komt het vaak voor dat de patiënt een wat zwakker immuunsysteem heeft. Hier afgebeeld met de blauwe cellen met de oude vrachtwagen met een platte band. Maar wat betekent dat nou precies, de fitheid van het immuunsysteem? Wat houdt dat nou in? Het immuunsysteem is een complex systeem met veel verschillende soorten cellen en is van groot belang om ons te beschermen tegen ziekteverwekkers van buitenaf, zoals bacteriën en virussen, maar beschermt ons dus ook tegen bedreigingen van binnenuit, zoals het gevolg bij kanker. Maar wat bedoelen we dan met de fitheid van het immuunsysteem in de context van kanker? Wat we daarmee bedoelen is dus hoe goed het immuunsysteem in staat is om de tumorcellen te herkennen en aan te vallen, terwijl het gezonde cellen met rust laat. Want anders krijg je bijwerkingen. Er zijn verschillende manieren hoe je de fitheid van het immuunsysteem een soort van kunt kwantificeren, kunt meten. De meest voor de hand liggende manier is om bijvoorbeeld te kijken naar de immuuncellen in het bloed. Deze kun je dus meten. Dan kun je kijken naar hoeveel sterke groene cellen en hoeveel zwakkere blauwe cellen in deze afbeelding er aanwezig zijn in het bloed. En dat kan een beeld geven hoe sterk het immuunsysteem is. Je kunt ook kijken naar de samenstelling van de milt. De milt is in principe een bloedfilter en verwijdert oude rode bloedcellen uit het bloed. Echter verwijdert het ook bacteriën uit het bloed en stuurt de milt ook nog het immuunsysteem aan. Dus de samenstelling van de milt en de immuuncellen in de milt kunnen ook een beeld geven hoe sterk het immuunsysteem is. Wederom met de sterke groene cellen afgebeeld in groen en de zwakkere cellen in blauw. Een derde manier is om te kijken naar de bacteriesamenstelling in je ontlasting. Dit is voor de reden dat je ontlasting, de bacteriën in je ontlasting samenhangen met het ontstaan van ziekten, onder andere met kanker, maar ook met de respons op therapie. Zo zijn hier in groen goede bacteriën afgebeeld, die dus samenhangen met een betere respons op antikankertherapieën. En in blauw slechte bacteriën. Als je die heel veel in je ontlasting hebt, heb je een grotere kans dat je ook slecht reageert op immuuntherapie. Nu we weten wat we bedoelen met de fitheid van het immuunsysteem en een idee hebben hoe je het kunt meten, is natuurlijk de volgende vraag: kunnen we iets doen om het immuunsysteem dan een handje te helpen en te ondersteunen? Er zijn veel factoren die invloed hebben op de fitheid van het immuunsysteem. Er zijn factoren waar je niet zoveel aan kunt doen. Dan kun je denken aan leeftijd. Oudere mensen hebben bijvoorbeeld een wat zwakkere weerstand, maar we hebben nog niet het medicijn uitgevonden om het verouderingsproces te stoppen. Gelukkig zijn er ook factoren waar we wel invloed op kunnen uitoefenen. Een van die belangrijke factoren is bijvoorbeeld voeding. Wat we eten heeft direct en indirect invloed op de fitheid van het immuunsysteem. De EMA, dus het Europees Medicijnagentschap, heeft al diverse soorten immuuntherapie goedgekeurd. Wat in theorie betekent dat deze medicijnen dus effectief en veilig zijn. Echter is effectiviteit maar aangetoond in een klein deel van de populatie. En de fitheid van het immuunsysteem speelt hier dus een rol in. En voeding speelt wel een rol op de fitheid van het immuunsysteem. Echter is het nog niet zo goed bekend wat er gebeurt met de effectiviteit van de immuuntherapie als je gaat spelen met voeding. En wij geloven dat hier grote kansen liggen. Dat je voeding kunt gebruiken om de fitheid van het immuunsysteem te boosten en daarmee dus ook de effectiviteit van antikankertherapieën te vergroten, specifiek immuuntherapie. Hoe kun je dat dan testen? De meest logische optie zou misschien zijn: een mens moet eten, dus mensen die behandeld worden met kanker moeten ook eten, om hun meteen een specifiek dieet te geven. Echter is dit niet altijd de meest veilige optie, want ondanks dat je het beste dieet kunt samenstellen voor je immuuntherapie, zitten de nutriënten in het dieet, kunnen die ook gebruikt worden door de tumorcellen om te groeien. Dus je zult daar een balans in moeten vinden. Vandaar dat testen in mensen op dit moment nog niet ethisch is. Ook het testen van alleen met cellen op het laboratorium is op dit moment nog niet mogelijk. Dit voor de reden omdat het immuunsysteem heel complex is en er dus veel verschillende soorten cellen nodig zijn. En je ook nog een combinatie moet maken met de tumorcellen. En daarnaast moet je ook bedenken dat voeding nog verteerd wordt in je darmen. Dus dat je dan zo'n complex systeem moet opzetten in het lab, dat dat nu nog niet beschikbaar is. Want we hebben dus eigenlijk het complete organisme nodig. In deze studie hebben we gekeken naar muizen, hebben we gekozen voor muizen. We hebben muizen dus geïnjecteerd met kankercellen van andere muizen, om zo te voorkomen dat er een directe afstotingsreactie ontstaat. Vervolgens hebben we deze muizen behandeld met radiotherapie en immuuntherapie, terwijl zij verschillende diëten ontvingen. Voorafgaand aan deze proefdierstudies is er uitgebreid literatuuronderzoek verricht om tot een selectie van specifieke diëten te komen. En zo hebben we gekozen voor omega-3 vetzuren. Omega-3 vetzuren vind je bijvoorbeeld in vette vis en zijn in de literatuur uitgebreid beschreven voor een positieve werking op het immuunsysteem, voor een ontstekingsremmende effecten. en zijn dus goed om het immuunsysteem te helpen. Hier afgebeeld wederom met de groene cel met de formule 1-wagen erin. Als tweede hebben we gekeken naar voedingsvezels. Voedingsvezels zijn van belang voor een goede ontlasting. En de samenstelling van je ontlasting en van de bacteriën in de ontlasting is dus ook weer van belang of je wel of niet goed op immuuntherapie reageert. Bij voedingsvezelrijke producten kun je denken aan volkoren producten, maar ook specifieke groenten en fruitsoorten zijn rijk aan vezels. Als laatste hebben we gekeken naar een multinutriëntensamenstelling, waarbij we omega-3-vetzuren en voedingsvezels nog hebben gecombineerd met extra vitamine D en extra eiwitten. Vitamine D maak je aan door de zon, maar kun je ook tot je nemen met behulp van supplementen. Eiwitten, dan kun je denken aan vlees of eieren, maar ook aan zuivelproducten zoals melk en yoghurt. We hebben vitamine D en extra eiwitten aan het dieet toegevoegd vanwege een positieve effect op de spiermassa. Laten we beginnen met de omega-3-vetzuren. Deze zijn dus beschreven in hoofdstuk 5 van het thesis. Hier zien we een overlevingscurve met op de verticale as het aantal dieren in experiment en op de horizontale as de tijd. En we zien dat de dieren die het controledieet ontvingen, aangegeven in blauw, korter in experiment zitten dan de dieren die het omega-3-vetzuren verrijkte dieet ontvingen. Je ziet dus dat de curve, die groene curve, wat opschuift over de tijd, wat betekent dat de dieren langer in experiment zitten, wat dus betekent dat de tumor wat trager groeide. Om het mechanisme te achterhalen hebben we gekeken naar de samenstelling van de milt. En zagen we tot onze verrassing geen verschillen tussen de dieren die het controledieet ontvingen en het omega-3-vetzuren verrijkte dieet ontvingen. Dit toont maar weer aan hoe complex het immuunsysteem is. In hoofdstuk 6 hebben we gekeken naar voedingsvezels. Het is al beschreven in de literatuur dat veel voedingsvezels in je dieet zorgen voor een betere uitkomst. In dit experiment hebben we echter voor de eerste keer naar de samenstelling van de vezels gekeken. Dus alle vezels hebben dezelfde hoeveelheid, alle diëten hebben dezelfde hoeveelheid vezels, maar verschillende combinaties van vezels. Waarin we dus inderdaad ook verschillen zagen met mix 1 in groen afgebeeld het beste. Je ziet op een gegeven moment dat die curve vlak gaat. Dat betekent dat de dieren dus genezen zijn en daarom heel lang in experiment kunnen blijven. En dat er in die dieet mix 1 dus meer dieren genezen zijn ten opzichte van experiment mix 2 en 3. Ook hier hebben we gekeken naar de samenstelling van de milt. En hebben de vergelijking gemaakt tussen de dieren die genezen waren en de dieren die niet genezen waren. Waarin we zagen dat de dieren die genezen waren een beter immuunprofiel hadden in de milt ten opzichte van de dieren die niet genezen waren. Verder hebben we in deze studie ook gekeken naar de samenstelling van de bacteriën in de muizenpoep. En waarin we dus observeerden dat de dieren die genezen waren een betere bacteriesamenstelling in hun poep hadden dan de dieren die niet genezen waren. Ten slotte hebben we in hoofdstuk 4 gekeken naar het multinutriëntendieet. Waarin we dus zagen dat de dieren die het controledieet ontvingen het minder goed deden dan de dieren die het multinutriëntendieet ontvingen. Hoewel dit niet statistisch significant is de trend duidelijk zichtbaar. En wederom hebben we gekeken naar de samenstelling van de milt en de vergelijking gemaakt tussen de dieren die genezen zijn en niet genezen zijn. Waarin we observeerden dat de dieren die genezen waren dus wederom een beter profiel van immuuncellen in de milt hadden dan de dieren die niet genezen waren. In conclusie, we kunnen voedingsnutriënten dus gebruiken om de fitheid van het immuunsysteem beter te maken en dit heeft weer een positieve invloed op de effectiviteit van immuuntherapie. We hebben laten zien dat buiten de vezelhoeveelheid ook devezelsamenstelling specifiek van dieet is in dit proces. Daarnaast hebben we laten zien dat omega-vetzuren verrijkt diëten en eiwitrijke diëten effectief en veilig zijn in deze studies, wat de weg opent voor humane studies. Iets wat 5 jaar geleden nog niet denkbaar was. Echter, voordat we naar mensen kunnen, is het nog van belang dat we deze data gaan valideren in aanvullende proefdiermodellen. En ook zijn de werkingsmechanismes nog niet altijd volledig achterhaald. Dus er zal nog veel meer vervolgonderzoek nodig zijn. En hiermee geef ik het woord terug aan de prorector.
Thank you very much, Ms. Candidate, and you are exactly on time, well planned, so my compliments for this. And like I mentioned before, and also on your request, we remain in the discussion in English, yes? So before continuing, I will introduce to the audience some names. First of all, my own name. My name is Professor Steinbusch. I'm the pro-rector, and I am assisted today by Professor Platt, who will be the secretary of this event. But much more important is the promotion team who guided you over the last 5 years, since 2020, to bring you here this morning where you're going to defend. And I'm going to introduce the promotion team, and for the audience, they are sitting opposite of me on the other side of the room. And I have here with me, in the middle almost, Dr. Van Helvoort. He is involved as nutritional physiology at Danone Nutrition Research. Then we have Professor Langen, who sits right over there. He is the head of the respiratory medicine at our university. Then we have the only lady in the middle of the promotion team is Professor Shiri Sverlov. She's head of the Department of Genetics and Cell Biology. And finally, the first promoter, sitting also on the first stage here, is Dr. Thijs, who is head of the Department of Precision Medicine. And they have guided you over the last 4 years to really looking forward to see your defense this morning. Saying this, we're going to continue, and for the audience, there will be today 6 opponents here available who's going to discuss with you. There will be 2 online and 4 what we then call officially on-site. And we're going to start with Professor Blaak. Professor Blaak was the chair of the assessment committee, and she is chair of the Department of Human Biology at our university, and I'd like to give her the first opportunity to discuss with you. Professor Blaak.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Prorector. Dear candidate, at first, of course, congratulations on this very nice thesis with 2 nice reviews on the role of fatty acids in cancer progression and therapeutic efficacy, and also 3 nice experimental studies looking at different dietary components. I would like to expand with you on dietary fibers. And perhaps one of your paranymphs can read proposition 4.
Immune fitness is essential, beyond previously reported dietary fiber quantity, also fiber composition is relevant for therapeutic outcomes of combined radio and immunotherapy.
Okay, yeah, very interesting proposition, and I would like to discuss with you what is the current status and what steps do we have to take to obtain more efficacy. And perhaps based on chapter 6, you test there different fiber mixtures, and you also elaborate on possible underlying mechanisms in the introduction. You give the fiber compositions in supplementary table 1, and in one of the mixes the fiber content is insoluble or cellulose, and the other compositions are composed of different combinations of merely soluble fibers. Can you explain to me what has been the rationale for choosing these different fiber mixtures? So you briefly touch upon that in the discussion, but good to have the basis for that.
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you for the compliments. Regarding your question, indeed, in composition 1 is based on cellulose. This is the regular AN93M maintenance diet. And in the other diets, cellulose has been replaced by other fibers. In composition 2, we used 4 different fibers which are normally present in a healthy, varied human diet. They are present within the same amount in this diet. And in composition 3, we picked specific fibers which we know that are important for immune functioning. These specific dietary fibers have been selected by Danone Nutricia, who's already done a lot of research on these specific dietary fibers.
Okay, that's clear. But you elaborate also on the underlying mechanisms, possibly related to short-chain fatty acid production. Mm-hmm. Was that taken into account in the selection of fiber mixtures?
Yes, that was also taken into account indeed. Cellulose, so the maintenance diet, is just a bulking agent. The microbiome cannot use it a lot. It cannot ferment into short-chain fatty acids in principle. The other fiber mixes, indeed, we were expecting to have an increase in short-chain fatty acid production. And short-chain fatty acids have indeed been described to function as HDAC inhibitors, leading to...
That's very clear. Huh? You indicated also in your introduction. So in that respect, you would expect perhaps more effect of mixture 2 and 3. And perhaps mixture 1 can be seen as a control condition.
Yeah.
When I subsequently look at your data in figure 2, then the results seem a little bit the other way around, with the most beneficial effects of composition 1, at least when you see the progression-free survival curves.
Yes.
That's correct? Yeah.
It is surprising indeed.
Yeah, and you don't discuss that very much also. Of course, the conclusion is different fiber mixtures are distinct, but could it be indeed the case that your control condition is the most beneficial, and what could explain that?
That is indeed a possibility, that the control diet indeed somehow outperforms the other diets, and that indeed cellulose is beneficial. Regarding the mechanism, then it's not something related to fatty acids, but then the mechanism has not been revealed yet, but I can imagine that it has something to do with the composition of the gut microbiome and the specific species within the microbiome.
Yeah, is that really the case? Yeah, we know cellulose may be fermented to some extent, but at least less than the other mixtures. Could it also be related to other processes in the gut, related to absorption or anti-nutrient action or whatever?
Yeah, that's also definitely a possibility to explore in the future, indeed. I agree with that.
Yeah. And then with respect to microbial composition, what also may have affected the result possibly, but I would like to know your opinion. When I look at the initial microbial composition, it's already different between the 3 mixtures.
Yes.
Can you comment on that? May that have affected your results?
It may have, yeah. We cannot rule it out, I guess. Yeah.
And then you analyze the microbial data. I was just wondering what is not entirely clear, because you indicate, of course, at all time points the mixtures are different. That could also be related to the fact that initially it's different. Are there differences in changes as a result of intervention between the different diet compositions?
Can you maybe rephrase
No,
the
the effects on microbiota, are they less pronounced with cellulose as compared to the other diets? Is there differential effects of the different diet compositions?
Probably yes. Cellulose mainly as a bulking agent and not absorbed, but...
That's indeed true, but because you compare composition 2 and 3 to composition 1 before and after, and of course you see differences because there are already differences at baseline. But what about the changes? Are there any? Yeah,
I understand your question. Whether the change over time indeed has an influence. That we cannot rule it out. I don't think we did the statistical analysis for that in this chapter. We have all the sequencing data, so it's definitely something to look into for future research.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, very clear. And I think these remain very interesting results, also when you do not find what you exactly expect. It leads for further research. Very briefly, how do you see the further research?
No, sorry, I have to interrupt. So we have time. That's going to be a long question if you see further research.
Okay,
that's too long question. We have to proceed, and we're going to move online now. And I'm going to introduce Professor Rense. Professor Rense is involved as expertise in the field of medical aspects of vascular disease from the Leiden University Medical Center. I welcome him from Leiden, and I'd like to give him the word.
Thank you, Mr. Prorector. And dear candidates, I'd like to congratulate you and your promoters and co-promoter on completion of a very nice thesis in which you studied the effects of various nutritional interventions on combined radio and immunotherapy of colon cancer in mice. So my expertise is not really on cancer. So my first question was, why did you use only female mice to implant the tumor cells in and study the effects of the different diets? Why not take male mice alone?
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you for the very kind compliments. And regarding your question, why only using female mice, this has been done in the first experiment. We ordered animals, and you get one gender. At that moment, female mice were available. And in the follow-up experiment, we had the same control diet, and we wanted to validate whether the control was indeed behaving the same throughout all the experiments, and to rule out effects on due to gender on the control. The follow-up experiments, we also decided to use female mice again.
I see, so that's a very practical reason. But do you expect differences in response?
Definitely agree that there are differences in response regarding gender. Females have a lot more fat, and their lipid metabolism is completely different compared to males. And also certain cancer types, among which, for instance, breast cancer, are more prevalent in women due to this altered lipid metabolism due to gender.
Okay, so there are maybe future experiments needed to also include males in the experiments to see whether the data apply for both sexes then.
Yes, I agree that future studies should include males and different cancer models, and yeah, that there's still a lot to be done.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to discuss a little bit about chapter 4, in which you evaluated various supplements to the diet on the progression of the tumor growth. And in discussion on page 113, you mentioned that none of the active compounds worsen the therapeutic outcome of combined therapy. So that sort of suggests that your combined radio and immunotherapy was effective. But I sort of missed a control where you only implanted tumor cells without this combined therapy. So was that on purpose?
I agree, we are missing the controls without irradiation, and with only irradiation and with only immunotherapy. So from that point of view, we cannot make conclusions on those questions. Whether this was on purpose, yes or no, I think it would be good to include these groups. However, there's also a limitation in how many animals you can handle, and our main question at this moment was to find out whether one of the interventions had an effect on the combination therapy or not, and not yet on which mechanism. That would follow-up studies would, if time would have allowed me, then I would have done those. Yeah.
I completely agreed that was the purpose of your research. On the other hand, I was just wondering, because if I look at the sort of, let's say, the progression-free survival curve in figure 3, the majority of the mice die anyway within quite a short time after implanting the tumors. So I just wonder, whether the combined therapy was effective at all, and well, that could have been clear if there was a control group. But let's say it was effective, and that you indeed have some effect of the combined therapy. Then all the different supplements do not seem to have a very different effect on the experiment. And I sort of wonder what the reason was for the choice of the various diets, because I see that you use biotic fibers, fish oil, vitamin D, branched amino acids, and whey protein, but you did not measure the effects of those individually, but on top of each other. So why did you choose to start, for example, with the prebiotic fibers and then add other constituents on top of that?
So the starting point of this study was the full composition, from which we know that it delays the onset of cachexia. And now we wanted to establish question 1, whether it's safe in combination with radio and immunotherapy. And also then we had to think about, okay, which additional groups do we need to unravel the mechanism? And that's when we considered different approaches and in the end decided on this building approach of adding 1 compound. But the starting point was actually the full concept.
Okay, so you thought that those fibers may be the most important, and then fish oil, then vitamin D, and then branch chain amino acids, because you added those in that order.
That's a good suggestion that we could have considered indeed.
Okay, great. So you, in the discussion, you mentioned that all of these supplements would have an effect on muscle mass or integrity or muscle function. But I was a bit surprised that you did not measure muscle mass after completion of the experiments or measures of muscle strength. So was that not important in this experiment?
Yeah, that's a good point. We did not do this in this study anymore because in previous studies in this model we did not see an effect on the muscle mass, or muscle strength using nutritional interventions. And because the chronological order of the experiments is not the same as in the book. So we started with the omega-3 study and with the fiber studies where we looked at muscle mass. And in this study we did not do it anymore because we did not observe effects.
Okay, thank you very much. Would it be room for just 1 more question, Mr. Robector?
Unfortunately not. I'm surprised. So we have to proceed. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So the opposition will be continued by on site now. We go back to Professor Platt. He is the chair of the Department of Physiology and Human Nutrition, and I would like to give him also the opportunity to discuss with you.
Thank you, Mr. Prorector. Dear candidate, I also would like to congratulate you and also your promotion team with this beautiful thesis. It's a lot of work, it's important work, and the thesis was written very pleasantly. It, like we say in Dutch, it las als een trein. It was easy to read, so that's always pleasant. You touch upon the topic of nutritional status as an important factor to regulate the immune fitness, because you think it has a strong effect in these cancer patients because they are often undernourished. And I would like to go also, like the previous opponent, to chapter 4, because there you try to improve this nutritional status. And well, some of the things have already been discussed, but I was wondering if you look a little bit more to the model and the diet that you gave to these animals. There's a lot of mineral mixes and vitamin mixes, etc. So just as a start, why do you supply all these minerals and vitamins and other components? Because then it doesn't look like you have a undernourished mouse model. Isn't that an easy way to maybe make them a little bit more prone or more mimic the human situation?
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you for the compliments. And regarding your question regarding the mineral and the vitamin mixes, these are standardly present within the AN93M maintenance diet. Mm-hmm. So another strategy than what we looked into could indeed be to reduce the amount of minerals or replace the minerals with other mixes. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to see what happens then.
But could have affected the outcome and maybe make the differences between the dietary intervention groups bigger? Would that maybe have had an effect?
I imagine that it indeed can have effects. Whether the effect would be bigger or smaller, I'm a bit hesitant to answer that, because all the effects with diets are relatively small in my studies.
Okay. I think that's a good answer for a researcher. We need to see the proof. That's good. And then if you zoom in a little bit more in the dietary composition, then I was a bit surprised if you look at group E and F, in terms of composition, because actually in group F you finally add the whey proteins, but already in group E there's a certain amount of whey protein added, which was not present in A, B, C, and D. And the same for the branch chain amino acids. They are all of a sudden doubled in group F as compared to group E. So can you explain a little bit what happened over there?
So yeah, maybe indeed the legend is not the best choice here. Maybe low protein and high protein would have been better terminology.
Okay.
So that's what we intended to establish a low, yeah, like the maintenance diet has only casein protein, and then you have a low protein diet, and then protein replacement and a very high protein diet to improve muscle functioning, muscle mass.
That's clear. Yeah, clear answer. Thank you. And then, if you look at the effect sizes between the different dietary groups, also the previous opponent touched upon that. They are quite small, the differences. But I was wondering, do you really need all the ingredients? Because you can say it's maybe a power issue, that the differences between the groups are not large enough. But I was wondering, maybe one of the components would already be enough, and you don't need all the other components. And then, of course, the question is which component should it be? And therefore, I would like to combine the data from chapter 4 and 5, because actually in chapter 5 you did a study with only the fish oils. And if you look at the effect sizes, the effect size in chapter 5 in terms of hazard ratios is even larger than the best option in chapter 4 with only the fish oils. So how can you explain that?
I agree with you that indeed the effect of fish oil is bigger than the complete mixture. So regarding efficacy of radiotherapy, immunotherapy, maybe indeed only one component is sufficient to have the best effect. However, if you only use one component, for instance the omega-3 fish oil, this will not be enough to, in a later stage, prevent cancer cachexia or delay the onset of cachexia. Then you will need complete nutritional interventions.
Okay, so it could be that maybe, to make it even more complex, that the dietary composition could vary over the timeline of cancer progression and development of the tumor into later stages.
Yes, I definitely agree on that. I think we need indeed to establish personalized diets and then take into account the personal body composition, but also the moment when a patient is being treated and which intervention is needed at which time point. So before intervention and maybe during intervention period, and probably afterwards there will be a new intervention again. I guess that will be the future.
Okay, and maybe an even more general question, because you touched in your presentation also upon the point of how to bring this data to the human situation and how to measure it, maybe. And you said, well, it's maybe at the moment not ethical yet, and you need the complete organism to have responses. Those are all phrases from your presentation. And you said, well, if we want to measure immune function, I can count the amount of cells in blood, I can count the cells in the tissues, in the spleen in this case, or look at the bacteria and the features. But actually, there is a consensus paper from a lot of immunologists and nutritionists, and they say if you want to measure immune function in humans, you need to do vaccination studies. So you need to vaccinate people and then look at the antibody production over time, because there you need a complete organism. But that's, of course, not specifically for cancer patients. So is that something that we could also consider when testing interventions and effects of interventions in cancer patients? Would that be a model, or are there maybe disadvantages?
It's an interesting suggestion, but how to phrase this? When it comes to whether it's a good model of yes or no for anti-cancer treatments, I'm not sure, because
I also don't know, because I'm a little bit hesitated because the immune system might not be functioning optimal, and so the question is whether it's ethical to vaccinate these patients. I don't think I would have the guts at the moment, but I think it's something to think about. Maybe we can discuss later at the reception and see which are the positive and negative points of that. I'm happy with the answer, and I give back the word to the Prorector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then the opposition will be continued again online, and we move to Dr. Ravasco. She's a specialist in immunohematology of the Universidade Católica Portuguesa and understand in Lisbon, and I'd like to welcome her and thank her that she joins us this morning. I would like to give you the word, Dr. Ravasco.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here, and I would like to congratulate personally the candidate. Very nice thesis, very well written on a very fascinating topic, I would say. I am a clinician, so I treat patients, and this is a very dear area to me, and it's a very challenging area to try to modulate and somewhat dictating the immune response of patients so that the medical treatments work in their full power, which is something that we really desire. So coming specifically to some questions that I had about protein intake, you measured several, as it has been largely discussed, several components on your diet intervention, including the N3 fatty acids, the fibers, vitamin D, and the branched chain amino acids. If it was today, do you think that you would change anything regarding the protein supplementation that you used in these studies? Coming on the issue about the risk for nutritional deterioration in patients and the impact that nutritional status may have in cancer patients for a limited or somewhat incompetent immune response in these patients that may have?
Opponent, thank you for the kind words. Regarding the question whether the proteins should be different in this diet, I know that there are differences between indeed plant proteins or animal proteins, and that these have different effects. According to what I have read, mostly it's the current consensus that animal proteins have the best effect in combination with immunotherapy. But so from that perspective, I would keep definitely the whey proteins. And we know that branched chain amino acids are also important there, so those I would also keep. But I guess there are also other proteins. I'm not an expert in this area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. There are very recent data showing the potential benefits of using HMB as well as a supplement in these circumstances, also for the immune fitness. So eventually it could be of interest. That was just a mere curiosity of mine. As for N3 fatty acids, very interesting studies that you show, and the potential that omega-3 fatty acids alone to have a wider response in comparison to other components was very interesting to see. And from a clinical point of view, if you were to try to transfer these data into a human trial, what do you think would be or should be the amount of N3 fatty acids to use as a supplement for colorectal cancer patients, for instance? Because cancer patients are very different in terms of phenotype, of immune response, of metabolism, catabolism, and all those issues. But in colorectal cancer patients, what would be the amount that you would think would be useful to achieve a positive response in these patients?
Great question. Honestly, I have no clue. Yeah, no, I don't know the numbers.
This is an interesting area, because omega-3 fatty acids have been studied as a supplement for immune fitness in patients for many, many years, and we are still dealing with some issues when choosing the correct N3 supplement for patients, whether they are lung cancer, colorectal, or other cancer patients. So it was also a curiosity, because your results are very in line with the power that omega-3 fatty acids may have in dictating the prognosis and the tolerance to therapy when patients are submitted to anti-neoplastic treatments. So I was interested in that as well. What about if you gave some kind of thought, what about probiotics in this type of intervention, aiming to modulate immune fitness and immune response in these studies?
Be very careful.
Did you think about it? Did you?
Yeah, we have thought about it indeed, but I would be very careful with the use of probiotics. Based on the study of Spencer et al., they did comparisons between fibers plus probiotics alone, and low and high fiber diet and all these kind of things. And they saw that over-the-counter probiotic administration actually worsened outcome. So I guess, although some preclinical studies show indeed positive effects, for instance with bifidobacteria and other probiotics types in humans, the data actually say the opposite. So I would be very careful with administration of probiotics at this moment.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Very recent data, and also very many literatures, many publications, advertising surrounding scientific properties of probiotics. But indeed, it is an issue that we need to be careful about. I just have one last question. I don't know if I have time, but if not, it's okay. I'm happy with the answers.
If it's a short question, it's okay.
Okay, I would just like to ask, which biomarkers do you think that could be useful when measuring immune fitness in patients prior to chemo or radiotherapy?
I guess that will be a biomarker signature. There will not be only one specific biomarker. So I would make a combination of inflammatory markers based on several cytokines, probably something like albumin, and to relate to the body composition, and ideally also in combination with a gut microbiota screen, and these three components built into one signature, and then decide what strategy will be best for each patient. But that's an ideal future. Whether that's feasible at this moment, probably not.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy with the questions, Director. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then the opposition will be continued, and we go back here to on-site. Dr. Kramer. Dr. Kramer is involved as a hepatologist at our academic hospital, and I would like to give him also the opportunity to discuss with you.
Thank you, Mr. Prorector. Dear Ms. Candidate, of course, I would like to join the previous speakers with congratulating you on your important work. I read your thesis with a lot of pleasure, because I think it's highly relevant that we learn more about the role of nutrition in the initiation and progression of cancer. But what makes your thesis more unique is that you also studied the effect of nutrition on cancer therapies that we currently use in the clinics. So that's unique, I think. And of course, I would also like to congratulate your loved ones and your promotion team. That being said, I would like to discuss with you the use of mouse models. We've been using mouse models in scientific research, studying drug therapies, anti-cancer therapies for decades already. And as we know, it has certain advantages, as you just showed, but also some disadvantages. And especially when looking at nutritional interventions and metabolism and effects on cancer therapies, what kind of limitations could you envision looking at the differences between the model you use and the human setting?
Esteemed opponent, thank you for your question, for the compliments. Indeed, there are a big difference between the humans and the mice. In mice, everything goes much faster. So also the cell division, but also the I assume also the processes that will take place in the gut will probably be much faster. So I guess that will be one of the issues within translation. So that's a disadvantage. Also the microbiota of the humans are completely different compared to the animals. The animals are still kind of although we see differences, they are still within a controlled environment using specific pathogen-free animals, which is of course never the case in humans. You cannot keep patients within such a controlled environment. And also when it comes to eating a diet, I think there's also still a big translation step needed, because we give these animals the food pellets and they eat specific amounts, but such a diet and adherence to such a diet in such a strict way will not be feasible within the clinic. So I guess these are definitely important points to
I'm sure if you had 5 more minutes, you could go on explaining a lot more differences. And I think that is an important thing to consider, because it makes the translation from mouse to human, well, I'm not saying impossible, but extremely challenging, because there are such huge differences. So that's why I'm happy to see that a part of your promotion team already made the first exploratory steps into human intervention studies, although they are of course also difficult. And in chapter 2 you present an overview and you look at the association between various fatty acids and cancer initiation and progression. And on page 51, and you don't have to read it, I will read it for you. You say in your concluding remarks, personalized diets need to be designed, since a single recommended diet for all cancer patients will not be sufficient due to inter-individual variability in, and there you go, nutritional status, immune responsiveness, gut microbiome composition, tumor disease stage, and presence of comorbidities. And also here we can sum up a lot more variables. However, at some day we have to make the leap to the human setting. And what would be the ideal experimental setting in studying nutritional interventions in cancer patients and cancer therapies? How would you design such a study, and what are important things to consider there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess the more controlled, the better. So I would start with one specific cancer type and then have good biomarkers for that. And then I think, you would need probably, it's a bit contradictory, because from one point of view, you want to have this super controlled setting and super controlled everything the same, but then you also will need a lot of patients in the end, so probably multi-center. That will clash with each other. So I guess if I had to do it now, well, eventually multi-center studies and very, very broad will be the best.
Yeah. So I agree with you. You have to do it in a most controlled way, which is difficult. So studying one cancer type at a step, that is definitely an important thing. How would you do your dietary intervention? Thinking about how easy or difficult it is to keep a diet. Just think of, what you know in diets in general.
Yeah, I think indeed nutritional counseling for every patient will be crucial to keep them on track of the diet and to help them motivate to keep eating the diet that is advised.
I think as a warning, as a clinician, I can say that diets in patients don't work. Because and especially in cancer patients that deal with nausea, loss of appetite, they got a lot on their minds already, and they don't want to change their normal habits that they've had for years. It's extremely difficult for persons in a normal situation, and especially in a stressful situation. The previous speaker touched upon how you can look at, adding some fatty acids, etc., because you want to do it placebo-controlled, and you want to do it randomized, and you want to do it blinded in order to get a good idea. That's not possible with diets. How could you still look at the effects of different nutritional components, adding them or leaving them out of the diet, especially adding them, I think?
Maybe with indeed direct nutritional interventions that is not possible. But for omega-3 fatty acids, you can take supplements, and there you can use a placebo using a supplement from a jelly from whatever, and a supplement with a gel from rich in omega-3. So those are options.
I fully agree. I think that's a much better controllable situation than a diet. That will be very hard. Is there room for one short question?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, thank you. I'll give the word back to the prorector.
We have one more opponent, and I would like to give him also the possibility. So we move to Dr. Gottschalk. He is chair of the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology at our university, and I'd like to give him the opportunity also to discuss.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prorector. Dear candidate, also I would like to congratulate you first. I read your thesis with a lot of interest, and I think it's a very important issue to investigate. And I would also like to include my congratulations to the supervisory team. I think it's a hell of a job. I think the supervisory team is even bigger than what is sitting here, which is also a big job for you, right? So keeping track with all those supervisors. My first question would be related to your figure on page 14, in which you introduce, let's say, the balance in immune fitness. So if people have hyper response or a too strong immune response, you have inflammation, you would like to reduce it. But you can also have a hypoimmune response, so too low, so people have immune deficiencies, etc. So there you would like to increase the immune response, so to come back into that balance. I thought this was great. Then I thought I started reading your thesis, and then I saw all your interventions, or most of your interventions, are focused on reducing immune response. So your N-3 PUFAs, right? They suppress the immune response. Your short-chain fatty acids suppress immune response. Caloric restriction reduces inflammation. Ketogenic diets reduces inflammation, etc. Right, so they are all focused on reducing the immune response. But you want both sides of the coin in your toolbox. So don't you think that is a missed chance? Don't you think you should also have diets that can induce your immune response?
Esteemed opponent, thank you for the kind words. I think that's a good suggestion. However, this model will not be suitable for that. In this model, we know that the tumor produces so much inflammatory things that more likely there is a hyper-inflammatory response. So then probably you will need to go for a model which has a hypoimmune response. So then I can envision some animal models with animals that are partly immunodeficient, but then you have to be careful that the immunotherapy still has a target. So yeah, it's always this balance. But within this model, I don't think the hypoimmune response can be studied.
So what you're saying now is that you might have used the wrong model then, because if you think about cancer patients, usually cancer is let's say a disease of old age. People have maybe already lower immune responses. Your mice were relatively young. If you would have to redo it, you suggesting to do another study? Or to use another animal model then?
I think it's a combination of both. You probably will need both models to answer this question properly. So if I had more time and more money, I can imagine indeed I would keep the mice for 2 years before injecting the tumor to make sure, no, maybe 2 is extremely old, maybe 1 year and a few months. And then, compare them to young animals. I guess that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I think you're right when you say that you need both models, right? You need to increase immune response, decrease immune response. Being able to do that both, I think that's a good suggestion. So then, imagine you have this animal model in which you can, or you have to boost the immune response because it's too little. Do you have any suggestions? How would you proceed with that?
Then I can imagine that you actually will need pro-inflammatory components within the diet. So there are currently studies being done looking into, for instance, the administration of saturated fatty acids.
Okay.
Generally, they are seen unhealthy, but there's at this moment one cohort study that actually found a positive association. It's only an abstract at this moment, so I don't know the details regarding the whole experimental setup and the whole population and everything, but I envision that this could be a strategy to consider.
Can I make another suggestion? You focus on N-3 fatty acids, but the N-6 fatty acids, so the immune modulators from N-6 fatty acids like leukotrienes, prostaglandins, etc., they are also considered to be pro-inflammatory. So could you maybe change the N-3, N-6 fatty acid ratio to modulate, use that as a tool to modulate the immune response?
That's what we indeed tried in the PFAT chapter. We played around with the ratio there.
Yeah.
I envision indeed if you use an animal model of aging and everything that we just touched upon, then the experiment can be repeated and maybe the outcome will be different indeed.
Okay, then I would like to, because I like this answer that you have to play around with this N-3, N-6 ratio. So then I would like to go to your proposition number 3. Seeing the time, I don't ask one of your supporters to read it for you. I will do it. So there, in that proposition, you say enriching the diet with N-3 LC-PUFA rich fish oil improves the outcome of the therapy or the treatment. So we just discussed that it's actually more than just N-3. So I was wondering, are you now willing to change proposition 3 or even retract it?
The whole chapter, probably that's a no. I still stand behind the data. The proposition could be rephrased indeed by...
Dear Ms. Candidate, you are allowed to finish your answer, but you also can choose to stop here. It's your choice. It's your choice.
No, the statement can be rephrased indeed. Probably it would be something related to, at this point, having a diet with a low ratio N3, N6. So with high N3, low N6, and that ratio, that would be the way to go.
So it's no retraction. It's no retraction of the thesis.
No, not from my perspective.
Very well. Dear Ms. Candidate, dear Ms. Westheim, the time appointed for defending your thesis has now passed. The degree committee will now withdraw to discuss the quality of your thesis and in particular the way you have defended your thesis this morning. And I request that you and your company await the results of our deliberations and the return here to the aula. Thank you very much.
The PhD defense has now ended. The degree committee will debate the candidate's performance behind closed doors. This process usually takes about 10 minutes.
Southside, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goals only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. On the line, I know you know that I can't read your mind. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. Cause I'll go the extra mile. Long road to the south side, 7 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goals only getting clearer. East side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. On the dash, got my laces tied. Long road, I don't waste no time. Break rules because fate decides. With the team and we chase the light. I make a move, fall down, shake it off. I hate to lose, bad branch, break it off. No room for negativity, praise and love. Prepare for deep part cause we're taking off. The mileage, traveling so far from home. Gathering knowledge, other connections. I put the time in to get everything I ever hoped for. It's a challenge and we all in. It's a better future that we go for. Even though these nights seem long, I know that I am never on my own. Know you've won the battle once you've grown. Southside, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side, no place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and not. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror. I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer. East side to the west side, no place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and not. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. 'Cause I'll go the extra mile.
Hij is ook heel zwaar. Zware kost.
Well, dear Miss Candidate, I'm still calling you candidate, dear Miss Westheim, the degree committee here present has assessed not so much the quality of your thesis, that was already approved, but the way you have defended your thesis this morning, and we also have looked critically to your presentation. In view of its positive verdict, and taking into account your previous qualifications, the degree committee has decided to grant you officially the degree of doctor. And look into your face, you're quite pleased about this, I think. Dr. Thijs is authorized to confer upon you this academic distinction in accordance to Dutch university customs, and therefore I invite now your supervisor to take officially the floor. I give the word.
Annemarie, belooft u dat u altijd volgens de beginselen van wetenschappelijke integriteit te werk zal gaan, eerlijk en zorgvuldig, transparant, onafhankelijk en verantwoordelijk?
Ja, dat beloof ik.
Krachtens de bevoegdheid ons door de wet toegekend, volgens het besluit van de commissie hier tegenwoordig, verklaar ik u hierbij Annemarie Johanna Francisca Westheim tot dokter te bevorderen en u alle rechten te verlenen die daaraan volgens wet en gewoonte zijn verbonden. Ten bewijze hiervan overhandig ik u nu de bul door de rector, secretaris en overige leden van de promotiecommissie ondertekend en met het grootzegel van de universiteit bevestigd.
De fotograaf die mag gerust naar voren komen. Hallo. Yes. Helemaal naar voren. Ik geef het woord aan dokter Thijs voor het uitspreken van de laudatio.
Ja, Annemarie, hoe dat we dat normaal doen, zeggen we dan. En ik ga beginnen in het Nederlands voor je familie. Ik zal daarna, net zoals jij, je defense overschakelen op het Engels. Dokter Westheim, gefeliciteerd. Je hebt het zo hard verdiend. En Annemarie staat hier, denk ik, na 5 jaar hard werk. Maar zij staat hier vooral te blinken voor jullie, voor je familie. Ik kom er dadelijk even op terug hoe belangrijk jullie geweest zijn. Dat hebben wij vanaf dag 1 eigenlijk altijd gevoeld. En ja, ik denk dat dat heel erg zegt wie dat je bent en wat dat je belangrijk vindt. And so I will change to English. When we do this laudatio, normally we look back on these 5 years and so on. In your case, 5 years. And 5 years ago, actually it was in full COVID, right? We did all the interviews and so on online. And it is not so easy to find good PhD candidates, believe me. And like if you talk to people hiring PhD, it's not so easy. And then in COVID, it was even more challenging. But it was very, and I think, I'm not really sure you know, but from all the candidates, we were very, with the team, unanimously, like, all right, it has to be Annemarie. Yeah, it was very clear from the start. So there it started already, okay, that is where your journey started. And I don't know whether at that point you knew how challenging it would all be. Because when I look back, I think challenge is the word that comes mostly to my mind. So it started with all the COVID, and in the beginning, of course, we couldn't do many experiments. So we thought, all right, you know, it would be a good idea also to test maybe a little bit your writing skills, very important. How about we let her write a review on COVID in obesity and metabolic-related disorders? And just to indicate, that review that was accepted, it didn't make it to the thesis, but it did make it to WHO guidelines, which is something, all right, you know, it tells a lot about Annemarie. Yeah, sure, not in my thesis, you know, WHO guidelines. Well, that's kind of rather important. So, okay, you were doing that, well, this review, good. The next challenge, and I'm not really sure that we were aware that it was going to be such a challenge, was getting your permit for your animal experiment. Because as said here, a lot was done on animals and so on. You had lots of animal experiments. All right, eventually you got your permit. Then, of course, all the experiments needed to start. And you had, as Roger already highlighted, had to deal with a pretty extensive supervisory team. That's us, and there's also other people involved in the Ludwig, in the animal experiments and so on. So you had to deal with quite a lot of people. Luckily for you, we of course never had different opinions, so that was very easy to deal. That was convenient. Also the fact that there was industry, academia, so that challenge very, very easy. But okay, then the animal experiments, the permit was there. Okay, animal experiment needed to start. Right. Annemarie, you can do an animal experiment. First time, you know, you do it, let's start with, let's say, 2 or 3 groups. No. Annemarie, she starts with a full package, huge experiments, first time, being prepared, being a little bit stressed. And I think, like asking people here, it gradually got a little bit better. The beginning was, let's say, challenging to get everything up and running and so on. But I don't think that any of the PhD students or people dealing with animal experiments were better prepared in the sense of things that were written down, tasks that were divided and so on. That created, of course, for some people, initially a little bit of a new way of working, let's put it this way. But typically you also, when you heard like, oh, this was difficult or that was a little bit more challenging for others involved, and I think really almost everyone here and also some people that are not here have been involved somehow in work that you did. You know, and what you also did very nicely at the end of such an experiment, you also brought these together, reflected on it, there was cake, there were drinks, and you brought them together like to say thank you your way. And that is something really that is, I think, typical for you. When I see how you grew, how you have been working in the lab, and I asked around people, so how would you characterize Annemarie and so on? Most people say, if not everyone, oh, Annemarie, she always wants to do so well, and she's always in between all her busy work. And busy work, that means animal experiments, they don't wait, that is days, logic, evenings, a little bit less logic, weekends, maybe a little bit less logic, but also, and taking into account, I know how important it is for you, for your family, also at Christmas you were there, also at Easter you were there. So always this wanting to do well, and in between all these animal experiments, all these other things that you did, always proactive, wanting to help others, wanting to help in others' experiments, where it's none of your, without any like direct importance for you, no, because you want to help, helping in writing papers, in writing grant proposals. Always, always you were there, not just when you were asked, but you also asked yourself. It's a quality that really, really is, yeah, huge. Don't ever lose that. And I think I'm talking for everyone, everyone will agree. And also, something typical for you, and I must say there's something weird that never happened to me before, like with all students, that there is a PhD student coming to me, I'm like as a supervisor, asking, whether it would be okay that in the evening she would go to badminton. So that is something, really, it looked as, and my father is it something, is that, I'm not sure that she's asking you these type of things, but, so that is, but again, it indicates like, oh, it is my work, I need to do this, but you know, it is so typical for you, and it was, I think, also a challenge to get that all done, but you did manage. You're here, you're standing here. So that is, I think, really something to treasure. And then there is maybe one more thing. It's more like, let's say, an advice that I would like to give you, and that is you're a doctor. You're part of our academic community. You probably have already, and if not, you might, because I think it's your dream to stay within academia. You will find out that the academic world is not always very the easy world to live in. It's a fantastic world, but not easy. And it takes a lot. But what I hope that we have been teaching you, we have been teaching you a few things. One thing is, for instance, we are teaching a little bit strange mathematics for your parents and friends. So I think what we taught you, for instance, in radiotherapy, that 1 + 1 is actually less than 2. But in science, and you're a very good example, an exponent of that, that 1 + 1 is so much more than 2. So that is a very important lesson that I want to transfer to you, or that you have to keep. The other one is, you're an academic. And as an academic, I really, really hope that you keep this mind of being critical, to follow your core values, and to realize that those probably who shout the hardest are probably not the ones who are right. To really think, to really listen, to follow your heart, to protect your core values, and to take that along. Now, today, within science outside, that is something really, really, really that I hope, as a promotion team, that we can transfer that to you. And then I would like to end, and that's the only time I need my paper, because I would like to end with a small little poem that I think is very appropriate for you. And that is, Annemarie, there is freedom waiting for you on the breezes of the sky. And you ask, what if I fall? Oh, but Annemarie, what if you fly? Congratulations.
Dear Dr. Westheim, may I also take the opportunity to use your new title for the first time. I also would like to congratulate you on behalf of Maastricht University. You did a great job. We heard a lot of interesting things today, and I was a little bit surprised already by the laudatio by Dr. Thijs, in which he mentioned that you're going to write a review about the role of the coronavirus infection on obesitas, but I thought you are in the middle of the corona. Were there any papers already available to review at all? But anyway, that's nice. But you did a great job. It was a good discussion, and it was an excellent presentation which you give here this morning. In my congratulations, I also go to your promotion team who's sitting in front of me, who guided you in the last 5 years, and who gave you the opportunity, I would call it like this, to shine today. Today is your day, and you shined, and you really enjoyed it. I also would like to thank the members of the Corona who took the time to ask for 7 minutes question. I was rather strict in that one, to give everybody the opportunity to ask some questions. And of course, I also like the foreign opponents, both from Lisbon and also from Leiden, to really join today. In my congratulations, also your family. I think they're from Venlo, as far as I understand, yes? I read it over here, so from Venlo. And of course, I was pretty disappointed that you, once you finished your high school, you didn't choose for Maastricht, but you chose for Nijmegen, basically our competitor. But finally, you got the bright idea after Nijmegen, it's really time to go to Maastricht. And I think that's a fair decision you made over there, and you finished over here. By saying this, I think it's also time for some drinks, some pie. There's beautiful weather, and we're going to have a reception outside here in the middle square of our university. However, before we proceed, I would mention that the audience already can already enjoy this. We're going to make some pictures here. So we make some pictures here in the aula with our 2 onliners available. I would like to ask the photographer to stay. And after that, we're going to make a picture on the stairs of the university. And after 7 minutes, we will join you also in the square. So everything is planned, everything is under control. Thank you very much. And officially close the session.